Welcome back to Allcarnews, and today you join me here with Nissan's latest version of their best-selling crossover, the Rogue. And we have it here in the highest trim possible. You can get the Rogue Platinum. What's new for 2024? Well, it's a lot of visual changes on the exterior, but on the inside is where the big technology changes come in for the 2024 model year. And that new VC turbo 3-cylinder engine is now standard across the entire Rogue lineup to both improve fuel efficiency for everyone and give everyone a nice balanced amount of power. So is this Rogue worth around $45,000 as we have it tested right now? And how does it compare to some of the other top contenders in this class? Let's go find out in this video, and let's go dive in right now. So what exactly is under the hood of this Rogue, or well, every single Road now for the 2024 model year? Well, we have this 1.5-liter VC turbo engine from Nissan, and it's a pretty unique little engine. Since it is a 3-cylinder, you would say, oh, it's not going to make the most amount of power. Well, actually, it does make a pretty decent amount of power from this little thing, around over 200 horsepower and the 220 pound-feet of torque range. So pretty decent power numbers from a 1.5-liter turbocharged 3-cylinder, though it is not the most powerful thing in the class. You're going to be seeing 0 to 60 times in the 8-second range, though fuel economy is decently well. Around town, I've been seeing 30 to almost 40 mpg in some cases. On the highways, you're going to be seeing around that 30 mpg figure. Now, on this particular Platinum model, we're actually getting the lowest amount of mpg possible due to the higher wheels, though lower trims of the Rogue are actually going to get a little bit better fuel economy. Now, of course, this is paired with Nissan's XTronic CVT transmission, with the latest version of it, with quicker shifts and everything, quicker gear ratios, simulated gear ratios, so that's really nice. But I think overall this engine's very smooth. It's actually likes to be driven in eco mode pretty well, and that's really where we're going to extract the most efficiency out of it, though it would be nice to see a little bit more of a nice powerful option on the Rogue, as well as some sort of hybridized option, which pretty much every single competitor does offer. Okay guys, you joined me here on the inside of the Nissan Rogue for 2024. Some nice new chimes popping up here. Let's go take a quick tour of the exterior before we head off on a little bit of a road trip drive for you guys down to Camelback Resort. We have about, I think, almost 100 miles to travel in this Rogue, and you can see its efficiency, how this Pro Pilot Assist system works, as well as how the new infotainment system is going to be kind of interacting with you if you do choose to purchase a 2024 Rogue. But again, quick tour of the exterior. We have to listen to this goose honking over here. As this is the Rogue Platinum one, we are getting a little bit more of a nicer appearance. So we see we can have this newer grille style up front here, which I think is a quite tasteful grille design. We also have the new Nissan logo that we found on the new Rogue as well. We can see we have our sensor up here for our Pro Pilot Assist systems, radar, cruise controls, and everything. We also have these nice wheel options on this particular Platinum model. I think they look quite nice as well. Very tasteful, but I think they are going to be a little bit of a hamper to your fuel economy. But the rest of the design of the Rogue really has not changed for the 2024 model year whatsoever. So generally, a lot of the shapes are going to be pretty similar to what we're familiar with. Just this Platinum edition's a little bit more nicer than what you would see previously. Opening up our rear tailgate here, we do have a power rear tailgate, which is a nice touch. And back here, we do have this really innovative kind of cargo storage system back here. It isn't the largest trunk, I believe, in the class, though. With this cargo storage system here, we are able to kind of move the floor around to these different height levels here. And you can see that you are able to fold the second row down for an increased amount of space. I think just over or around 76 cubic feet of space, which is a nice touch. And then you can shove this piece back into the floor panel here, and of this floor panel back in here, and it locks into place. So you can kind of move this around to a few different areas for some increased cargo space capacity, which is nice. There's a nice little mat there. And we also have some storage capability over here as well. So interesting, unique cargo floor area divider that Nissan has come up with, but it is nice. We have a first aid kit, Nissan branded back there, and pretty much decent amount of nice felt line space in here, but nothing too crazy. Of course, power rear tailgate. We'll let that close up for us. Let's go take a tour of the rear seats. So rear legroom in the Rogue is honestly quite spacious. We have a lot of space in this particular one, so not too bad. This front passenger seat is a little bit far back, but generally I think in my driving position here, you can see you have a good amount of space. You know, rear seat amenities are okay. It's nice that we have these side windowed deflectors, which is a nice touch for the sun, especially for kids back here. We also have some LED accent, oh, not LED, but we have ambient accent lighting. We can see the floor ambient lighting right down there, which is nice in the footwell area. Lots of cup holders throughout the interior, which is going to be very useful to you. And we also have heated rear seats on this particular platinum trim, which is nice. And now we have 2 USB-C ports back here, which is a really wonderful touch. Air vents and a little bit of a screen for to control our temperature for our climate system here. The seats themselves are quite comfortable though. We have this nice semi-aniline leather in this particular one. It kind of feels like it's derived straight out of Infiniti. The seats themselves are pretty comfortable. They have a good amount of thigh support as well, which is a nice touch. Easy access to your ISOFIX anchor points for a car seat as well. We also have a little bit of a center console here with 2 cup holders over here. And this giant panoramic glass really does help to open the cabin, let a lot of light in, and it makes this kind of rear areas feel a little bit more spacious. So I think there could be a little bit better room back here in terms of some leg room. Again, I know the seat's a little bit on the further back side, but even on the driver's side, it's a little bit on the smaller end, and the footwell area is generally quite good. There's a little bit of a hump here, you can see, but it's not too intrusive. So you could technically fit 3 people back here. I could actually sit in the center area and kind of put my legs here without really intruding on the 2 rear passengers as well. So that's kind of a nice touch here. Makes this good for hauling a whole bunch of people around all at once. One thing to note though is that the Rogue only has automatic up-down windows on the driver's side, not on any of the other doors, not even the front passenger, which is a really interesting omission here. Also to note, even on this platinum trim, the Rogue does not have a power folding mirror option. It is manual folding mirrors. We do get LED repeaters here and cameras in our mirrors for a 360-degree view camera system. But again, another omission I did notice on the Rogue Platinum when looking at its competitors as well. Hopping inside here, we are all started up, and again, the real main new feature here is this infotainment screen that we have in the center console area over here. The rest of the interior, again, is very familiar with what we saw on the pre-facelifted version of this particular Rogue here. So we have power memory seats on this one, which is a nice touch. We have a lot of nice keyless access functions. Walking out of the vehicle, a lock, walking up to it, it could unlock. We have easy entry exit as well with our power seats. Now we do have power adjustable seats for both front driver and passenger, though the passenger really does not have many ways in terms of adjustment in terms of their power seats, while I have quite an amount of nice adjustment as well as lumbar support. The seats are generally quite comfortable as well. Really no big complaints there. Good for road trips. We also have heated seats as well as a heated steering wheel, but no ventilated seats at all. That's something you can get in like a Tucson, for example. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I do really like this drive mode selector here. Very easy to use, and it pops up in our digital dash right here. We have 2 nice big cup holders that are illuminated, as well as this wireless charging mat here. Pretty easy to use shifter. We can see our cameras are going to pop up in reverse. They pop up a 360-degree view camera system. You can also access the cameras via this button here. That's going to pull up that system. You can see we can do our 3D view as well, where it kind of rotates around the vehicle. With that view, we can kind of turn around it like that. So pretty nice camera system. The camera quality themselves is okay, nothing too high quality, but they look pretty good. 2 USB-C ports up here now, as well as this nice 12-volt socket. Engine start stop buttons located down here, which is a little bit of a funky location, but at least it's not hidden anywhere. And we also have a decent sized glove box as well. Some of that nice like faux-ish wood trim there, stitched dashboard. You know, some nicer amenities here on this particular platinum trim. We also have an optional package that gets us a heads-up display as well. And we have again the Pro Pilot Assist here, which we're going to test out over on the highway, which also comes with a steering assist function. You know, some things that I feel like are missing in here is just some of the more amenities and features you may be seeing in these higher top trim versions of this particular class of vehicle, such as the power folding mirrors, the ventilated seat, which is rare, but it is still available in this class at even a cheaper price point, as well as the lack of like a hybridized engine. I think those are some of the big things the Rogue definitely needs to work on going down the road if it really wants to kind of have a strong permanent footprint in this class. I do like this newer style steering wheel. We saw this on the previous facelift or the previous update of the Rogue. We do have a nice frameless rear mirror, though no camera at all. We do have home link though and auto dimming, which is a nice feature. And again, this nice big panoramic glass roof, which is a really nice touch, and it really helps open up the cabin. But the real highlight is this new infotainment system. It's Google based. It has this new kind of card style layout. I actually quite like how it works. Google Maps itself is super quick and responsive, and like really impressive actually. Even all these multi-touch functions are really nice, and it's Google Maps, so you really don't have to complain with it. And you also have the built-in assistant here that's going to be able to help you to navigate places. So I believe I could just say, hey Google, navigate me to Dunkin' Donuts.
All right.
And there you go. So it's very quick, very responsive, and I really have had no issues with it. We have wireless CarPlay as well, so I can quickly access Apple CarPlay via this little button here if it were to connect. Sometimes we have had a little bit of some connection issues there. And there's also some interesting Nissan based apps and things in here. A lot of Sirius XM drawn out map apps here. You have Amazon Alexa as well. So generally, I think it's a pretty good infotainment system. Definitely a nice update over what we previously had. You have the Nissan Connect services. You can connect it with your app, and you can kind of remote start your vehicle, check stuff in your vehicle via the app. So that's a lot of nice fun things as well. So they've definitely been catching up to modern times with a lot of this new technology stuff. Really big enhancements with the infotainment system. And of course, we have this digital cluster now, which we have seen before. Nothing too new, but I think it still works really, really well. No really big complaints there either. So let's head out on a drive now, see how the Rogue is out on the highway, as well as how it does in terms of fuel economy. Okay guys, so how is the Rogue out here on the road? So right now we're driving it in automatic mode, just around town here, and the Rogue is honestly a very comfortable vehicle. And the one thing I've been able to kind of speak on over this past week is just how comfortable it is in just pretty much all scenarios. There really isn't anything that's kind of really like hampering your daily experience, and I think that's the whole point of the Rogue. It's Nissan's #1 best-selling crossover vehicle, and it's all pretty much going to either families or Uber or taxi drivers here in the United States, and that's pretty much its kind of primary use case. And I don't think they really wanted to kind of stray too far in any particular scenario in terms of the driving experience, without creating this kind of neutral, good for everyone general feel that I think the Rogue is pretty well known for. And I think it still does that job really well. You have a lot of great visibility all around you. You sit pretty high. You kind of have that higher style SUV driving position as well. You know, the steering wheel is a nice decent size for you, but the steering itself is very light and has a good amount of feedback to it. Actually, there's not a lot of too much lightness where it feels a little bit loose or unsettling, which I have experienced in some of the competitor products such as Honda and Kia vehicles. So I think they've done a nice job in the terms of driving dynamics here, and I have to say it's been pretty quiet in here. Other than on the highway, I will say there's some kind of tire noise and a little bit of road noise coming from those wheel well areas. There's also a lot of drivetrain noise, and I think that has to kind of do with this interesting powertrain, as well as the combination of the continuously variable transmission CVT here. When you are kind of cruising around traffic at lower speeds, you kind of hear some whirring or some noises going around from the footwell area here. So that's one thing I noticed, but generally I think they've done a good job of kind of refining this platform, as well as the Rogue itself, to give you a more comfort-oriented experience here. And I have to say, this engine is so interesting. You know, if you're really interested in engine technology, you might even want to just buy the Rogue for that. So this is that new variable compression turbocharged 3-cylinder engine. We've seen it on the 4-cylinder in the QX50 as well as the Ultima Turbo recently, but this is kind of this now wider application of this 3-cylinder turbocharged engine. We saw previously as an option, now it's the only option you can get on the entire Rogue lineup. And honestly, it's a pretty cool engine generally, and just for everyone's application, I think it's a great engine. It's not the most powerful in the class, even at this around 200 horsepower figure, and it doesn't get the best fuel economy in class just because there's no sort of hybridization on it, but for what it is, I think it's pretty good. Typically, I actually quite like to drive it around in auto or eco mode most of the time. Now, there actually is a huge significance in putting this engine into eco mode. It really significantly dials back the gas pedal input, so I can really press on it. And once you start realizing how this variable compression system works, there's kind of two stages it can be in. It can be in the eco compression with a longer stroke, and you could also be in the power compression. So that's going to be giving you a little more of that power at all times, shorter stroke of those pistons going up and down, and all that is changed with this crazy actuator arm that can move, like I believe the camshaft up and down. It's a crazy amount of technology. I'll overlay a video there. It's going to make a little bit more sense, but it's kind of displayed on this graph here where you have the power and eco gauge, and it also shows the turbocharger boost, which for some reason this car uses up to around 30 psi of boost, which is pretty crazy just for a regular family crossover vehicle. But I guess this engine is pretty advanced, so it needs that boost to kind of work in all scenarios of the compression range here. So again, really unique engine, and you can see typically when you start driving it around, it kind of driving it almost like a hybrid in the sense of where you want to keep it in that eco gauge, just try to get the best fuel economy possible. And just on a quick like 10-mile trip I did yesterday, we got around 40 mpg. I am not kidding. If I could pull up the figure here, you guys will believe me. Almost 40 mpg. So pretty impressive actually when you are driving it in that eco setting. Works very smoothly. I've been looking through the forums to kind of see how people are doing with terms of reliability. You know, it's kind of hard to judge it since it hasn't really been out on the market too long, but I've heard generally good things so far in a wider case scenario, which is good. So we'll see how this kind of continues out over time, but so far I pretty like this powertrain for the Rogue. Now obviously I wish they were able to kind of throw in that new 9-speed automatic transmission. They're starting to roll out a little bit more over this continuously variable transmission, but I think Nissan was really focused on giving the Rogue the most fuel efficient kind of combination of powertrain as they possibly could, which is why I believe we have this particular setup here. And you know, it's pretty non-intrusive 99% of the time for most people, and they're never really going to care about what transmission is in here. So I think it works quite well. And if you're going to get that better fuel economy out of it, which you can still put regular 87 gas in this turbocharged engine, which is fine, I really don't have any too big complaints there. These screens are pretty fun to play around with. Now there's actually a lot of settings baked into this infotainment screen up here, which Nissan does in like all of their products now, which is okay, but like all of your driver assistance systems, your blind spot, your lane alert, lane keep assist, all that stuff is going to be through here, including your traction control settings as well. So there's a lot of stuff to kind of learn in this particular screen, not necessarily in your infotainment screen. I think down the road I'm going to advise it would be a good idea to kind of lift some of that stuff out of there and put it in the settings in this screen, just because of in terms of ease of use and just finding a lot of different menus. A little bit clunky and confusing in this screen here because you're kind of restricted to the layout here as well. So you can see we have a fun little gauges here that's going to show us our all-wheel drive system, and this is a front-wheel drive all-wheel drive system pretty much all of the time. You can see here it's starting to throw a little bit of power to those rear wheels. Once I put it in different drive modes, it definitely does change that ratio though. So in auto mode, it'll kind of adjust its ratio, especially if you go into snow mode or something. It's going to lock it a little bit more rear bias. You can see here it's going to be using a little bit more of those rear wheels. So I think this is a pretty good intelligent all-wheel drive system. You know, it's going to react to your environment as well, so really nothing to worry about there, especially if you live somewhere in that type of environment and you don't really want to worry about the all-wheel drive systems. Some GM cars in the past 10 years, you've actually had to have a button to push it into all-wheel drive. It wouldn't automatically do it, which is kind of crazy, even in like a regular crossover setting. But it's a pretty nice all-wheel drive system, really no complaints at all on this one. You don't really experience any sort of like traction loss in terms of the front wheels spinning too much. I've only had that once. It was going around a corner, just really hard off of a stop. So those situations are pretty rare. I think it's kept in line with the rest of the class as well. And we've already traveled 5 miles and we're getting 36.6 miles per gallon as well. So that's really nice of an MPG figure here. So let's pop it into sport mode now. We're gonna head out onto the highway here. We're in power now. And we're up to highway speeds around 60 miles an hour. Again, 0 to 60 times are around that 8-second range. So don't expect anything too particularly fast here with this Rogue. And again, there's no higher horsepower option or higher engine option and no hybrid options here on the Rogue. Though out here on the highway, you can hear it's generally quite quiet. You can kind of hear some of that wind and road noise from the lower part of the vehicle. Now, what we do have here is the Nissan's Pro Pilot Assist system here, which in this particular application is not the latest full new version. We have Nissan Safety Shield all around us, so we have blind spots, forward collision warning, all that fun stuff, parking sensors that are going to help us feel as safe as we can on the highway and in lower speed situations here. But the Pro Pilot Assist is generally quite good. It's a full radar adaptive cruise control system here, so we can adjust our following distance. We kind of press this little blue button here to turn it on, and we can change our following distance like that pretty easily. As well as it's pretty simple to set our speed up to a safe cruising speed. And we have steering assist here, which it does require you to have your hands on the wheel at all times, otherwise it will start beeping at you, which I'll kind of demonstrate for you guys right here. But it does fully steer the vehicle around corners. You do have a lane like departure warning system as well, so that's going to kind of vibrate the steering wheel and alert you if you're kind of exiting a lane in some frequent situations here. So there you go. Now it's going to start saying warning. Make sure your hands are on the wheel, so you do have to keep your hands on the wheel at all times there. But generally, I think it's a pretty good system. Just again, it's not one of those hands-free, more advanced style highway driving assistants that you may find in some other vehicles. Though this class particularly isn't really packed with those features. There are some highlight and standout options, I think, in terms of this full driver assistance package. And the Rogue, I wouldn't say is on that top end of it. It's there. I think it's a great system, but something like the Hyundai and Kia products just have really fantastic, really advanced systems that I feel like they're kind of dragging technology down from like luxury brands and throwing it into those vehicles now. So that's one thing to keep in mind if you really are focused on all of that technology and all of those safety assistance features. It's been a good week with this Rogue so far. I really have, again, I've had no issues. It's just a really good, I think, commuter vehicle for day-to-day driving, hauling people around, and commuting to and from work. And I think in city environments, you're actually going to be getting pretty good just daily MPG, and honestly in that 30 to even 40 range as well, especially if you're driving carefully and in eco mode. Nonetheless, guys, thank you again for joining me on another video and a little bit of a road trip here at Allcarnews. Hope you enjoyed this trip, and from where I am going right now, whenever you're seeing this video, stay tuned for a lot of really cool automotive content coming out of our local IMPA Press Association's media test drive day. Enjoy this nice scenic route of the Pocono Mountains here as we come up upon our destination, and as always, stay tuned for more coming on Allcarnews. Cheers.